Good afternoon, everybody. Peter Hollier from the Rural Fire Service wanted to provide you an update in relation to the current fire situation that we have right across the whole of the state. So today, as we sit here today, we currently still have 60 current active fires. As you're well aware, we've been fighting more than 100 vegetation fires across the state already this week, and as the conditions are prevailing, certainly the very high to extreme fire danger conditions are still continuing. Today, 130 QFES vehicles are in attendance at a range of incidents across those 60 fires, and conditions are still remaining hot, dry, windy, and areas of very high and extreme in small pockets are still being experienced, and the forecast, of course, is again for tomorrow for the same. We've got a range of fire weather forecasts that are issuing for tomorrow. Fire weathers across a range of areas including Central West, the Northwest, Channel Country, Maranoa, Warrego into tomorrow. Bushfire warnings remain in place for several fires, and the community have been doing a great job in following these advice that we're providing. It's very important that people who have left the areas in those bushfire affected areas do not return until we advise them to do so and that it is safe to do so. As you well appreciate, whilst we're still fighting the fires, we have not yet had time to do the necessary access and egress safety issues around the current fire situation as it stands at the moment. If we'd encourage certainly people that are not from that area and not directly impacted by fire, if they would please don't be complacent. Make sure that they have considered doing a bushfire readiness, bushfire plan. Make sure they've got their preparations in place. And certainly there's a lot of great information on the Get Ready Queensland website if they need some help with that. As you could well appreciate, a heartfelt thanks needs to go to our tireless firefighters, both permanent staff, part-time staff and our volunteers that have been working around the clock during these arduous times. And they're working, of course, to try and keep our community safe. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all of the employers that have released firefighters across the state to allow them to undertake this activity that's critical to our community. If I could just talk about the Tara fire. So there's two warnings still current for the residents to leave immediately in parts of Tara, Warrambilla, Kogan, Garamba and Warringah. And then there's a prepare to leave, watch and act warning in place for parts of Warringah. A separate stay informed advice warning is in place for the township of Tara, and there are still multiple crews and aircraft working on the fire at this stage. At this stage, it's a fast-moving grass fire in some of those areas. The remainder is still in very difficult terrain, which we're having difficulty accessing. We have had the use of the large air tanker today, which conducted a number of drops in the Tara township ahead of any potential weather that we may experience in the next number of days. On a good news story, we had a community engagement community meeting today at the Tara State Shire College at the hall, and that was to update residents on the current situation and ensure that they're engaged. At this point in time, for the Tara fire, there's more than 11,000 hectares that have been burnt to date, and a heartfelt sad note was certainly the 5 houses that have been lost, which is devastating to our community. Our crews will be conducting further damage assessments to assess what other damage has been done in that area. But at this point in time, it's still unsafe for them to go across many of the areas. Now, we understand that there are more than 350 people that have been evacuated, and evacuees located at the Tara Showground, Lagoon Parklands, or the Customer Service Centre being relocated to Dalby. So the Dalby Showgrounds and the Events Centre has been established as an evacuation centre. And of course it's critical that if anybody else has self-relocated from those areas, that they go and register at those evacuation points so we know how to contact them. Unfortunately, there was a body located yesterday, and Queensland Police Service are currently undertaking investigations in and around the circumstances in relation to that death. If I can just talk about the Cypress Gardens Merrin Down fires. There's still a not safe to return watch and act that remains in place, and at this point in time there are still multiple crews on the ground continuing to work to try and contain that fire. At this point in time there's over 3,000 hectares that have been burnt so far. Unfortunately, 1 house and 4 sheds have been destroyed by this fire, and we understand around 50 people have relocated to the local evacuation centre while some people elected to stay in the caravan park. Across the state, as you know, with the 60 current fires that we've got, a preemptive employment of fire bans have been put in place for large parts of the state. People can certainly go to the Queensland Fire and Emergency Services website to check if a local fire ban's in place for their local government area. If you're not aware, under the local fire ban, there's a prohibition on all open fires, and all permit to light fires which have been issued are either suspended or cancelled for the duration of the ban. And that's necessary to try and minimise ignitions that are occurring across the landscape being so dry. We'd certainly encourage all of the community members that are using any power tools, they could well be even using a lawnmower, that they take extreme care and ensure that adequate equipment's available to extinguish any fire that may well start as a result of those activities. Now, one of the side effects, of course, of a bushfire is the impacts of smoke inhalation and certainly the impact of smoke that it has on people's health. Again, there's a range of factors including your age, pre-existing medical conditions, duration of the exposure to smoke. Children and elderly smokers and people with illnesses such as heart and lung conditions are more sensitive to the effects of smoke. It's important that these pre-existing medical conditions, they take their medication, follow their treatment plan and seek immediate medical advice if the symptoms persist. Of course, to protect your own health in those circumstances when exposed to smoke, you should avoid physical activity outdoors, switch air conditioners to recycle or recirculate, and reduce the smoke coming from inside your home. So that's where we currently sit at this point in time. I'm certainly open to take any questions.
The Weather Bureau is saying tomorrow they're expecting gusty and very dry winds as there's that change. Are you worried about how those winds might pick up and fan these flames?
Absolutely. So what has been a constant in the last few days has been the wind, and certainly the strength of the wind. And if the wind was to then become further gusty, that then increases the opportunity for the fire to certainly make a run and be certainly difficult to contain. The challenge is, of course, things are so dry. We haven't seen it so dry. We've come off 3 years of a really good wet period. That southwestern part of the region of the state certainly hasn't had any significant rain since last year, whereas other parts of the state have. So they're in a situation out there where, as I've said, it only takes the slightest spark with the wind, with the temperature. It's certainly the opportunity for a fire to make a run fairly quickly. So what we refer to as a wind-driven fire.
And how worried are you about the township of Tara? Where is the fire in location to that? Is it moving away from the township?
So currently it's quite some kilometres from the actual township itself. My understanding is that from the Regional Operations Centre in the southwest region, they're putting measures in place to put some protection around that township, and that's a part of what the large air tanker was doing earlier today. And that's a preemptive move to ensure that as the fire does move closely, there's an opportunity for us to use that line of retardant that's been used to work off that to start to provide us an opportunity to pull that fire up.
And given the temperatures, I believe there was something like 30 weather stations across the west hit 30 degrees by 10 o'clock this morning. Like, it is so hot out there. That's obviously a key factor.
Absolutely. And of concern is the fatigue to our firefighters and the fatigue to our community. It's a case of this is a collaborative approach that's been taken across all of the agencies that bandy together to assist us in the times of need when we need their assistance, whether it be the local governments, whether it be national parks, forestry. We all get together to assist in times of need that we've currently got.
Is this one of the worst fires that we've seen in the Tara region for some time?
Unfortunately, the Tara region does suffer from a number of fires on a frequent basis. From the reports that I've heard, some of the locals are saying it's quite a large fire that they haven't seen in some time. As to the historical evidence that backs that up, I'm not aware of what that is, but certainly the fire intensity that we're seeing is equal that of the conditions that we have.
And in terms of how hard it is to contain, is that something that fireys are struggling with?
Yes, so it's the erratic nature of certainly the wind, the erratic nature of when the wind goes through the landscape, how that then drives the wind, which then picks up the fire. Spotting, so where you've got a fire that then spots ahead of the main fire, that certainly causes some concern. So overall, it's not an overly good situation with the current conditions that we've got to pull up a containment when you've got extreme fire weather.
Some of those fires have been burning near the LNG gas wells. Is that a concern?
Certainly, I haven't had any concerns that have been raised to me, but I'm of the understanding that the regional operations team out in the southwest region would be considering that in their planning as to what measures do they need to put in place to work with those providers in relation to what fire management plans they have on their properties. But I think that also leads us to the point that that goes across all of our communities. We need to, in times like this, have a look at our own circumstances, our own situation where we are. Have we done the preparatory work that we need to do? What is it that we have in our bushfire survival plan, and what measures have we put in place to know where to go, when to go, and who to contact if we were to leave that area?
Do you have any details on a potential second death at all?
There was a medical episode that I'm led to believe that occurred earlier this week, that there was an unfortunate death that did occur, and as far as the information that I have, it was a medical episode as opposed to a direct result of the fire situation that we currently have.
That's in the Tara region?
Yeah.
And did you say, earlier in the week?
Yeah, I believe it was Monday from the information I've got.
And for the southeast, are there any fires burning in this corner of the world?
There are, and there's been a number of fires that have been happening in the hinterland just from the Gold Coast, at Tullabudgery, I think it is, from memory. And of course, the challenge there is, again, historically our fire season always starts to the far north of Queensland. This year is a particularly extraordinary year where the fires have actually started in the southwest and the south and are moving to the north. We've now had fire activity, and we saw it just recently on the Sunshine Coast. There was quite a fast-moving, rapid fire that occurred there. We've had fires up into the central region, northern region around Townsville, and up into the Atherton Tablelands. So a little bit of a different year for us where the fire started to the south to the north. Having said that, there's a fire that we're certainly working on in around Mount Isa. So there's not one area of the state where certainly we're concerned that if fire kicks off under the current conditions that we've got, it will require our attention.
And with these thunderstorms expected over, I believe, Thursday, Friday, potentially into Saturday, are you worried about sparking more fires in strange areas?
Lightning strikes. Yeah, lightning strikes are always, dry lightning is always a concern. if we were to get lightning strikes with quite heavy cells of rain, that is not of a greater concern. However, a lightning strike can then start an additional fire, which then would require additional response on the resources that we've currently got deployed to fires that they're currently working on. So that is always of a concern. I'm hoping and always hopeful that we would get some substantial rain, but I can't see that in the forecast, and I can't see that happening in the foreseeable future as we move into summer.
Is it going to be a long season?
Yes, I think it will be a long season, long hot dry season, and certainly again this is the time that if you're not in the southwest, if you're not in an area where you're not directly affected from fire, is your environment where you live, is it now time for you to do that situational awareness of, well, I live in a bushfire prone area, what have I done? What have I done to engage with my local brigade, my local fire warden? What have I done to protect myself if something was to happen? Because as it is being reported, we've seen it being reported, that some people that have been experiencing these fires, they're claiming they've seen walls of fire that are heading towards them and a range of fire activity and fire behaviour that would be commensurate with the high temperatures, low humidities, and of course that wind that I've spoken about that drives the intensity of the fire.
Great, thank you very much.
No other questions? Thank you very much.